All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. We are recording it just for people who can't come. Do you all have a copy of their charter? Or would you like one?
Yeah. South Lebanon charter?
This is South Lebanon charter, yeah.
For you to keep.
All right. Offside.
I can't even say I left by the home. I've never seen it before.
All right, so format of tonight's meeting is just going to be a quick overview of charter governments. And then I have some Q&A for Linda. Is it Burke or?
Burke.
Burke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Linda Burke. She is the mayor of South Lebanon. I have some Q&A for her just to spark some conversation or thoughts for you guys. I don't have a Q&A for you to ask your own questions. And then we will adjourn. So I think at this point, you guys all know the difference between charter and statutory. With charter, we just had more freedoms as a city. Last week, we had Tip City here. So Tip City is a city council and city manager run charter. South Lebanon is a council, mayor, administrator form of city government. So we'll learn about the differences with that. But the main reason I wanted to have Linda come tonight is just because they recently became a charter in 23.
Yes.
That's when it was officially adopted. So I just want to discuss how they actually were able to do that, some of the costs involved, and some of the challenges you guys had to overcome to become a charter. So with that, I didn't do a good job of this last time, but we're going to just do a quick intro. I think you guys all kind of know each other, but just name and yeah, most exciting thing that's happened to you in the last week.
I'm Corey Oxley. I teach over here at high school, and I'm still reeling about the fact they took all the cell phones away from kids. So that's still my big celebration of.
And again,
yeah, kids are back. That's great.
Jason Bond. I'm owner of Take Out Hard Cider, Burke here in town. We have a couple places in Lebanon.
Yeah,
a few places in Lebanon.
Come on down to South Lebanon.
Been looking at several things down there. Yeah. But yeah, so takeaway from this week, is that what we're supposed to do? Something
exciting that's happened to you recently, last week or?
So I got to go to the art encounter. That was pretty awesome to see the art encounter down in Kentucky. See, that was you did that this last week. Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks for coming.
And I'm Bruce Saunders. I'm a retired school teacher with Wilmington City Schools, building principal. And I spend most of my time now volunteering for Clinton County Trails Coalition. And I guess my exciting news would be we're about to receive a couple special vehicles called Trishaws, where you can take a handicapped person for a ride on the trail. People that can't ride a bike, for one reason or the other, age or disability. So we're looking forward to those coming in and getting a pool of volunteers that will be able to pilot those, and then coordinating that with nursing homes and other facilities and just the general public that might need it, and get more people out on the trails. The other thing that I would note is just as I was on my way here, I saw a retired mayor coming up the hill with this tricycle. Yeah. And he asked me, where do you keep the battery on your e-bike? So he says, I'm loving it, just out cruising around my town, and nobody's yelling at him anymore. So.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Jason Sticks, downtown property owner. And I had nothing exciting today, and I'm so glad about that.
Okay. I like your shirt.
Yes.
That's sweet. All right. And then, Dustin Pierce. My exciting news is on Monday, I was an extra in a commercial at the Murphy Theater. And we had a surprise guest. Mike DeWine was like a guest star. So next year, I might be in the background of commercial that plays in movie theaters.
Cool. Very neat.
All right, Linda Burke, what was your exciting news for the past week?
What was my exciting news? My exciting news, and I know this will sound really wonky to some people, but we worked today on interviewing for a new public works director. And it's critically needed because we were a city of 2,500 operating, growing to 7,000, but still operating with a 2,500 staff. So we've been a little overwhelmed for a while. So that was exciting to me.
So I'm going to jump ahead real quick. Does that person, I saw on your chart, does that person, is it a new position? And do they report to the city administrator then?
Yes.
Okay.
But everybody reports to me at one
Well, sure.
point or another.
All right. So let's get some background on you. Why don't you tell us where you're from, kids, married, or in hobbies?
I'm originally from the Coleraine area down there near Cincinnati. Grew up there and met a guy when I was a teenager, and he wanted to do something crazy. He went into the United States Marine Corps. So for 24 plus years, I followed him around and I loved it. I loved the life. I worked in finance for the Marine Corps exchanges. We have one son. He's all grown up now. He lives in Columbus and he's married and he has 2 beautiful children and a beautiful wife. And my husband retired twice now, but he's working again because he likes to work. I have been on council I was on council for 6.5 years before I ran for mayor. I never thought I would be running for mayor ever. I was coaxed into it. And lo and behold, I ended up winning against a 30-year sitting mayor. And it was just time for a change. Good mayor, but we needed to move forward. So when we became a city, this was one of the first things that we talked about.
So when you became a city, you were like under the threshold of population to become a city. And then during the census, you became one. Okay.
We knew we were already
Sure.
beyond that. We should have done it sooner. And that's what I would recommend, sooner than later. Because it's easier to do it when you're not under time constraints. We were under time constraints because we were a new city. And if we didn't get this commission formed and it underway and on the ballot, we were declared a city in October. And I think it was October of 21, actually. And
yeah,
they started working. It went on the ballot, a special election in March of 23. And we had to elect a commission a charter commission of 15 people.
To write that. Yeah.
Yes, and get that on the ballot. And so they were in charge of writing this. And I was telling Dustin that it couldn't be any elected officials. It couldn't be anybody on council. We couldn't recruit those people. They had to be citizens that volunteered. So it was a cross section of people from all over South Lebanon. And they were elected and then they got to work really quickly. And we did enlist Catherine Cunningham, a lawyer who specializes. She's actually on our city retainer for, just things that we don't really, our solicitor really doesn't understand, so we have backup anytime we have a question. She and the commission wrote this charter. And council nor the mayor, we did not have any input. It was the commission who wrote this. But their attitude towards it was, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so they stayed with the strong mayor form of government, and the 6 council members that are staggered when elected. We had to do something a little bit different because the mayor and 2 council members used to be elected together, but we had to change that up so we had an even split. So this coming election, next year, the person who comes in last will only have a 2-year term because there will be 4 council members elected. They'll have a 2-year term and then have to run again if they decide to. So we have that evened out. So it's 3 and 3. And then the mayor's on not this election, but the next one.
So one of my main reasons for becoming a charter city is for more consistency with our government, so we can see like success and growth over time. What was your main driving force for becoming a charter city?
I think our real main driving force was the flexibility in governing, because when you're a statutory form of government, you're really locked into the Ohio Revised Code. And so you can't make any laws that would supersede that code with a statutory, but you can opt out of so many things that you really don't want to do, or you can change things up with the laws that you want for your city. Like we've put a moratorium on having any of the cannabis, in our city. We don't need it. We've got problems with that all by itself. So we put a moratorium on that, and our solicitor checks all these things out to make sure that we stay within the bounds, but we pretty much can govern the way we want to govern. And of course, we've done lots of things since I took over. We live stream now, so everybody can see. There's no excuse not to see a council meeting. If you have a question, you can come in. There's just a lot of flexibility in having a charter form of government. And I could go into just...
I'll ask some more questions if that helps.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what I really want to know is how you did this whole process. So you talked about it a little bit. But some more specific questions would be, how did you educate voters on the benefits of a charter?
What we did was we sent out information, first of all, and explained what this charter was going to do for them and what it would do for the city itself. When I say flexibility, if you ever look at anything, if you want to do something and the Ohio Revised Code says, no, you can't do it, and you're a statutory form of government, you can't do it. This lets you do it. This, like I said, gives you more freedom. But we educated the public as much as we could. Those were open, those commission meetings, they were open to the public. We sent out the charter for everybody to have a copy of before they ever voted on it and go over it to every household. And yes, it was a little bit expensive, but we thought it was worth it. Now, we had all kinds of different events to try to get people to come out and vote. But as you know, on an off-year special election, you're not going to get a lot of people out to vote. But the people that did come out to vote, they're very happy this is in effect now. I'm thrilled that it's in effect, because we don't have to, every time we want to do something, look at the Ohio Revised Code to see if we're in violation of it. We have more, home rule, freedom to do what, yes, we have to obey the laws, but we have more freedom to look at what is going on in our particular area and address it.
So my understanding is that there has to be 2 elections. There has to be one. Do we want the charter, form the commission, and then another election once it's made to vote on it, correct?
Yes.
So first of all, you had that election, and then after that, when you created the document, you then sent it out before even the next vote, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So people could understand what they were. This is the simplest way to tell people, this is the constitution of your city. This is what governs all of us. And like I said, the printing's so small to me now, it's hard for me to be. But like transitional provisions and things like that. Upon approval of a majority of the electors of the municipality voting thereon on the election on May 2nd, 2023, the charter took effect on July 1, 2023. And it was approved. And this, under the municipality, the charter is hereby declared to be the legal successor of the statutory municipality of South Lebanon under the laws of Ohio and shall have a title to all property, real and personal, owned by the predecessor, including all monies on deposit, all taxes and assessments in process. It, like I said, it just really frees you up. And continuation of employment. We had a really unique situation when this happened. Frank LaRose declared us a city in October 2021. We had an election going on. In a statutory form of government, the council members only had 2-year terms. We had 4-year terms. We were already in the middle of an election. And somebody said, "Oh, you've only got 2-year terms." And I said, you can't change the rules of an election in the middle of an election. So I called the Secretary of State's office and they said, "Gee, this is really a unique problem. We've never had this problem before." And I thought, really? So
Wait. So you're saying that as a village, you had 4-year terms,
Yeah.
but then when you like legally became a city before the charter, you had to do 2-year terms, and that was kind of confusing.
because we were in the middle of an election, we had already filed for a 4-year term.
Okay.
So they let that go through. They let those 4-year terms stand. We had to get legal counsel on it because it wasn't a norm. But all of us that were elected for our 4-year terms serve those 4-year terms or have been serving them out. They will be up in 2025.
Can I ask you, so there's a cost of like campaigning for the charter. Can you like talk about that cost and then talk about the cost of actually changing the government to a charter city?
They're changing the government. The biggest change, I will tell you, that comes along with a charter is that you have to form a civil service commission. Okay. And then you have to, when you hire people, except for exempted positions, everybody else, and exempted positions are like your city administrator, your director of finance, maybe your assistant finance director. Probably our public works director will be exempt, but everybody else has to take a civil service exam to be hired. And that exam is given, and then those names are given to the Civil Service Commission. They approve them, and then it comes back to us to interview those people.
I think we have that currently.
Okay,
As-
then you
as a
wouldn't
city.
have to worry about that.
Sure.
We had to implement that,
Mhm.
which was a whole different way of the way we had been hiring people. We had a personnel committee, and the mayor was on that committee, and this is prior to the charter commission. And that's the way we hired people. Now this is a really, in my mind, and it's a very fair way to hire people. You have to score a certain score on the civil service test, and then you go on to the next step. That way you get the best that you can get, and it keeps it all clean. There's no favoritism. It just keeps it really clean. And you want to have that in your workforce.
Do you know though that so one of the concerns I think is that to switch over from statutory for us to charter would just cost a lot of money to reorganize things. Do you know like how much you guys roughly spent on?
I it wasn't a horrendous amount of money because, we're a small city. I mean, we only have 7,000 residents at this point, and our budget is from income tax. I was telling Dustin, a very, 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 very small percentage of property taxes. Those all goes to the township and the county. So we really rely on our income tax, and it's only 1%. And if you're working in another municipality, you only pay 0.5%. Retirees don't pay any income tax on their income. So we have to be very, very frugal with our budget and know what we're doing. And it wasn't so much money that it.
Okay. So you could afford it. So
yes,
if you can afford it,
we can afford it
probably. What were some of the specific challenges that you had in the community to become a charter? Was there any like concerns or pushback?
Oh, sure. There's always, some negativity, about change. But when you talk to people and tell them the pros of this and what it can do for the city and how we can move forward, and not be just locked in. And I know there are a lot of statutory cities that just strictly go by the Ohio Revised Code because it's simple. You don't have to, wonder about this or that. But, like I said, legal counsel is always involved. And it just gives you, I can't tell you the freedom that it gives you. I wish I could really think. There's been so much happen, and I've only been mayor for 9 months, and there's been so much. And we've been really working through personnel to get that staff that we need to do the things that we need to do in our city now.
We can maybe like switch a little bit here. You said that one of the challenges specifically that you guys have right now is you had a lot of like housing developments that were built on tax abatements. So you weren't receiving those funds from those people?
With neighborhoods that were built with TIFs and tax abatements. So what that does, and this is directly from our Warren County auditor. I've talked with him at length on these things because I don't want to make the same mistakes. And I feel they were mistakes. When you do a neighborhood with a TIF, this is worked out between the city and the developer. And that TIF money can go anywhere the developer in the city decides that it goes. Well, when you develop neighborhoods with TIFs, there's no money really coming back for the schools or for your EMS. Some of it, a percentage of it, I can say most of the time went back into some infrastructure. But most of it really goes back to the developer. And tax abatements, that just means that there's no taxes being paid. And somebody's going to wind up paying those taxes. And it's all of us.
So the challenge that you have is that you're trying to do more economic development to bring in tax money.
Right. Economic development so we can have a broader budget, not so with so many constraints on it, so we can do infrastructure development and all the things that need to be done, and jobs for people to keep them in our communities. Because if we keep them in our communities, that 0.5% staying in our community, the whole 1%. And we've never, ever, ever talked about, maybe having to change the tax code. That's not been talked about because, it's a subject people don't like to talk about. When you're paying taxes, you don't want to pay any more taxes. And so I get it.
Your city tax is 0.5%.
1%.
1%.
If you work and live in the city of South Lebanon. If you work outside of the city of South Lebanon, it's 0.5%.
I think our city tax is 1.5%. Is that right? Does that sound right? I'm pretty sure it is. So now I just have a few more questions about your specific charter, and then I'll let you guys ask your own questions. So your city council, is it all females?
We have 5 females, councilwomen, 1 male,
Okay.
and me, the mayor. So there's 6 women and 1 man.
That's crazy.
Well, I will
Yeah,
tell
we have
you,
0 women.
I will tell you that women bring a different perspective to things. They really do. And we all seem to get along pretty well. And I encourage working as a team together. We're not here to work against each other. We're here to work together and work for our citizens in the community. And that's who we work for. And we work well. The staff, the council, and transparency is the key to everything that we do. So our council members feel, because ultimately the council makes the decision. You know, we bring an agenda to them, but they make the decision up or down. And the only thing I can do is vote in a tie. And those are very specific circumstances that I can vote. I mean, if we were involved in, say, doing property deals or things like that, I would have to step back, and that is the council's decision. And I'm not a strong arm mayor. I let the council be the council. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, great. It's only happened one time that I was a little blindsided, but, council makes the decisions, and I have to support the council because ultimately it comes back on them. If people feel that the council's not making the right decisions.
The council represents the people, yeah.
They do. And, if I disagree with council, I'll tell council that. Not publicly to throw anybody under the bus. But we have, and we have to be careful because of sunshine laws. You can't talk to everybody at once or anything like that unless it's an open council meeting. And, that's a good thing because it keeps everything transparent.
I didn't see any language in your charter about it being bipartisan. So there's some charters that don't have primary elections. They just council members run in the general.
We just run in the general.
Okay. And then do you run with a party affiliation or?
That can get interesting.
Okay.
It depends on if you're involved in, a party. Now, I'm very involved in the Republican Party in Warren County. So when it came time for the general election, the party did a slate card and endorsed me for mayor of South Lebanon. And the council members, they were all Republicans.
On the ballot, though, does it say like R?
No,
D, or so
it does not.
On the ballot?
There is no.
Gotcha. I saw in your charter that it says when you guys transitioned over, any city employees or any appointments like political people would remain during the transition. Was that helpful in getting it switched?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And I think our staff and our city workers felt safe and comfortable that they weren't going to lose their jobs.
Yeah. Any other? So I'm gonna let people ask questions. Any other thing that we should be thinking about with the charter?
You need to be thinking about when it comes to recruiting people for your charter commission. You want to know how they really think about things and what they want to see in their government.
when you say recruiting, you just mean asking people to run to be on
Yes.
the charter?
Yes. And you don't have to have a special election. You can get that on the ballot. We were just under a time constraint because we had so much time as this new city to get this all formed and done, because if we missed that deadline, we were going to be a statutory city for 7 years. And there was no changing that for 7 years. So we had a special election. We had a special election on the charter. We had to pay for that. The commission was elected during the general, or maybe it was the primary. I can't remember the dates, but they were elected on a normal ballot. This was a special election, and like I said, special elections don't bring out a lot of people, so I would encourage people to get it on a general or a primary.
There was some debate about that. Someone said that special elections, you're going to have less turnout, but maybe more informed voters.
That is true. That is true. And it was a very small percentage that this passed, but we haven't had any complaints about it. I think we're unique in a lot of ways. We don't have a police force. We don't have a fire department. Union Township and Hamilton Township share those responsibilities for EMS. On the south side of the river, it's Hamilton Township. On the north side of the river, it's Union Township. And we have a little area, Deerfield Township, which everybody takes care of. As far as, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I think we could ask people and ask questions now, probably. I guess so. Any specific questions that I didn't go over, or things that you guys would think of?
Could you tell again, when did South Lebanon become a city? Oh, I assume you were a town before that.
We were a village.
A village.
Statutory village. Statutory village. We went from a village to a city.
Oh, no town in between.
No town in between. October of 21 is when we became a city. Then we had to produce
my next
this.
question. I wondered if this was your first document or if that was a renewal.
This was our first
first one.
document. This was passed in 2023. I think March of 2023.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was 10 years.
No.
10 years.
This will not change unless citizens come forward and say, we want to either change something in the charter. I'm not sure they could say we want to go back to a statutory city. I'm not sure how that would work. I don't think it would work. But
don't you have to renew this every 10 years?
There is language that says it has to be reviewed at least every 2 years.
Reviewed.
Yeah, reviewed.
And then does it have to be elected every 10 years?
not to my
Just
knowledge.
reviewed.
That's something I can check on.
If they made any changes to it on the ballot.
Yeah, if they came and said we don't like this particular whatever issue it might be, we want to say elect the director of finance instead of them being hired, which we do not elect a director of finance. We hire them. That would have to go on the ballot to change that in this charter. Any type of change to the charter has to go on the ballot, and that you have to have signatures, just like you would anything else that you would want on the ballot of registered voters, and have that number of signatures to get it. And the language would have to be run through the Board of Elections, of course, and then put on the ballot.
I'm familiar with your area, and you have a lot of new developments in
Yes.
the last few years. What about those people that moved in after this election had happened how do you educate them and bring them along so they know what they're getting into and support it next time you have to?
First of all, they are welcome to come to council anytime. I am an open door mayor. These are available to them free of charge, and they can come to the administration building. Any questions that they have, they can run through.
You give them to your real estate agents or the developers of the neighborhoods? Always.
All the above. Any way we can educate people. And that's why we went to live streaming and having council meetings on YouTube so that, people could really see what was going on, and Facebook. And all this was put out and advertised on our Facebook account, our website, which we're working on. We need a new website. Those are all those kinds of things that happen when you go from a smaller village to this city. And there were lots of, I would say, not lots, but there were, families that had lived there for years. South Lebanon is one of the oldest platted. We were platted in 1795 and part of the Northwest Territory. So believe it or not, there are family names that reach really far back. And of course they were, kind of suspicious of this. But when you explain to them that along with, moving into being a city, which puts you in a whole different area, and to be a statutory city is your hands are pretty tied. And to do this, have your own constitution and the way that you want to function, and your government makes you much more free. And if, a citizen brings something to us, we're going to investigate it. We're going to see what legally, that we could do or not do. And there's all kinds of issues that always come up, property issues, just some of the things that happen. And, when developments are done, things change, regulations will change, and we'll have to, try to address those. But when you have a smaller budget, you can't always do that as quickly as people want. So we have to, kind of always be educating our citizens. And, we're not always going to have a great answer or solution at that point. But I always want people to walk away and feel like they've been heard, and we can move forward and try to get these things accomplished.
Is that big retail area with the Target and the Kohl's and all, is that within your?
Yes, that's all South Lebanon.
So you get tax revenue from that too, right?
Well, there was a tax abatement, and
Oh, for a long time. It's been a while now.
I'm trying to remember how long that is, and I think it's coming up on being done, and there will be more revenue coming in.
Yeah, I would think be a lot of revenue.
Hopefully, but we've had, because of the pandemic, businesses leave and not survive that pandemic, and we try to be very supportive, and that's why we want to do more economic development, because South Lebanon's a bedroom community of Mason and Springboro and Lebanon, and that's why we need some economic development in our area to not compete with them, but have a better surrounding so we keep our tax dollars in South Lebanon. And I think that's important for any community. Wilmington is a great place. I actually went to church camp out here at Camp Kirkwood many, many moons ago. And I don't know if you all knew Lois Allen, and she was the clerk of courts, I believe. She retired probably about 12 or 13 years ago. But I knew a lot of ladies because I worked with the Ohio Federation of Republican Women, and they were I worked with the women's club here in Wilmington. They had like 4 or 5 at the time, but I think they are now combined into one.
So did the Republican Party in Warren County throw support to the idea of a charter city, or did they?
No, they kind of stayed out of that.
They're neutral about that.
Right.
I suppose the Democrats are too. Yeah.
I think people realize this just wasn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. This was an issue to better our city. And like I said, the freedom, I wish I could explain it better, because under that statutory, the Ohio Revised Code, you can't deviate from that at all. You can with your own charter.
Yeah.
Now, you can't make a law necessarily that supersedes the Ohio Revised Code, but you don't have to be tied, your hands tied by the Ohio Revised Code. That's just the beauty of it.
I guess that's kind of my question, is if they follow all statutory laws, and it's compulsory, because that's how the charter works. How does it express more, like, how is that more free if
we don't follow all the Ohio Revised?
That's what I was asking, is what, so that's what
I'm trying to think of something that other than,
That turns on Robert.
Okay, by that you mean like,
Well, like they claimed at the time that the state had us put them in with the grant. If we was charter, we could. I mean, that's just a vague example.
Okay.
They couldn't tell us to put it for left turns, and if we didn't want left turn,
even if we still take that money? I think if we take that money.
if you take the money, I think you have to.
So I guess that
It's a
what
balance.
exceptions are there from the ORC when it comes time for this? Because the main draw for me was consistency amongst government. I never thought of the freedom argument, but then I didn't really hear anything about like what makes that more free. Like what exercise of freedom do you get with a charter city that you don't get under statutory law? So what ties your hands under statutory law? What ties it with charter?
I'm trying to think of something that the Ohio Revised Code that we just could not. Okay, there was an issue that came before us. They wanted to bring a sanctuary city for the unborn to South Lebanon. Lebanon had passed that, and they are a charter city. We were a statutory, I think we were just a village at that time. We were still a village at that point. And when they brought that to us, we couldn't even entertain that because that would have been breaking the law, more or less. We could not make a law that superseded the Ohio Revised Code as a statutory village or city.
So wait, you said the state did what now? Or
the state had laws on the book about, they wanted to keep abortion centers out of the city. Okay. In Warren County, there are no abortion clinics. Okay. There aren't. So to me, it was a moot point. But Lebanon passed a sanctuary city for the unborn, and that still stands today.
wait, so that means that in Lebanon you can't build an abortion center is what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. You cannot have an abortion in Lebanon. They also did it in Mason, but it was such a cantankerous and divisive issue that the council that passed that, they were overturned. They were voted out of office, and then the new council that came in overturned that law that they made. They are also a charter form of government. Those are the kinds of things that can happen when you have a charter versus statutory.
So the freedom is to make more law, like that.
Laws that you would like to see on the books. And that's what when I say freedom, it also gives you the freedom to say, no, we don't want to do that.
So would being a charter city help? Like, so we had the COVID mandates or whatever. Would a charter city help fight against that a little bit or not? Not at all.
Well, I think that we have a great sheriff in Warren County, Larry Sims. And when those mandates came down from the federal government and from the state government, and this is no secret, he told Columbus, I am not making my deputy sheriffs enforce those mandates, of forcing somebody to wear a mask or, stand 6 feet apart. I don't have time for that. My police force has other things to do than that. And it was about freedom in everybody's opinion. Now, I will tell you, we just went through on our staff just 3 weeks ago, 7 of us were out with COVID. We only have a staff of 15. And I requested that if anybody came into the city building that they be made aware of that, and they had the option to mask up or not come in the building. It wasn't a mandate. It was just, here, I want you to be informed that this has happened to half of our staff, and we want you all to be safe. But those are the kind of things you can set for yourself as a city. There were lots of places that didn't enforce those mandates in Warren County. Businesses that stayed open. And a lot of people, it was small mom and pop businesses that survived because those weren't shoved down everybody's throats. We would do in our neighborhood, we would try to support all of our local businesses all over Warren County. And we would take orders up for restaurants that had stayed open. And we would call in the order and they would deliver it to our neighborhood. We just put it on a credit card and we'd pay the person who put it on their credit card. And that's the way we helped small businesses stay open, by patronizing them. And that's the kind of camaraderie you want to see. And it makes for people feel like they are living in a place that cares about them. And what I care about for our residents is their quality of life. And so we do things that improve their quality of life, like we're getting to work on infrastructure that needs to be repaired and all those things. But I can't tell you how much I went to when I was first elected to council, and I asked the mayor and the city administrator if we couldn't consider doing a charter as a village. And they said no, they didn't want to do that. So when we became a city, for some reason that changed. I can't tell you what their thought process was, but it changed, and I'm glad that it did.
It seems like South Lebanon definitely has had to go through that stuff. It's having, a good growth, especially in residential. Did you guys take on a city manager, or did you seek counsel for growth planning, I guess, directional planning for your city? Because you have, even coming up and down, you've always had the golf course there, but now you have the potential, the tennis, which is not too far away.
Right.
That's been approved for $100 million renovation there. You have a lot of things, and of course, the Kings Island
Right.
there at your doorstep. I know that you have land. There's lots of housing that, I mean, it could be definitely potential for that. I mean, it is. I mean, at one point that was supposed to be called Ohio's Playground.
Yes.
The whole area right there.
Yes.
Ohio's Playground. And it seems like that's coming more and more fruition. Did you guys seek counsel on a growth plan, or are you?
We do have a comprehensive plan that we are trying our best to follow. We didn't anticipate the growth, the development of rooftops as quickly as they came. And that kind of put us behind the 8 ball as far as, because you have development, rooftops and homes that come in, but your infrastructure is not keeping up with it. Your roads, those kind of things. And now that's what we're playing catch up on. And so now with developers, when they come in, that's part of the discussion. We need turn lanes here. We need, and we're going to have you be responsible for that, not the city. If we need turn lanes, left-hand turn lanes into a community, they set aside money for that, to develop that.
You said you're hiring, so you have a city administrator that you hire, and then now you're also hiring a public service.
Public Works Director.
What does that person do?
That person is the person between the city administrator and our road maintenance people, our all around city maintenance. Our city administrator was carrying that load as well as all of his other duties, and that couldn't continue because he was completely overworked.
You said that you're focusing on economic development. Like, I guess to that point, like, have you hired someone to lead that?
That's coming.
Okay.
And I wanted to see these we've developed a continuing road paving program that's going to be implemented. I wanted to see that happen right now. It can't happen that quickly because we don't have the personnel to oversee. So we've been working through hiring personnel to bring our staff up to being able to handle all of these things.
So can I ask you about when you ran for mayor, this was already in place, or did it
Yes.
come in together?
No, it was already in place.
Yeah. And you have a city administrator, but not a city manager.
No,
Is that
I am a strong mayor. I'm the executive of the city.
so? A city manager would not have a strong mayor then.
Correct.
Okay.
Their government is kind of like our government, I guess. It's just they're a charter city. Is that right? Fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
I see the difference between Wilmington and South Lebanon, that we've been a city for a long time.
Yes.
So I wonder how much resistance there would be to changing.
From the statutory city to a charter city, that's what you have to explain to your constituents. And the person who can really help you with that would be a legal person who could explain every detail. We had legal help with writing this with our commission.
Okay.
And she has written many. And I would suggest another thing. You go out to other charter communities and get their charters as well, and look at them and compare them and see what you might like and how it might benefit your city, and go from there. I mean, we had several examples. One was Plain City, kind of about on our
size, population.
Yeah, size, population, kind of rural, but still with development going on. But I would suggest getting more than one charter to look at and go from there. And of course, like I said, legal help is really important with somebody who knows about charter government and statutory government.
So did your city government pay for the legal help?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if our city government, I mean, how,
It sounded like your city council was a little bit more on board with investigating that.
We all were, because we had basically lived with that statutory form of government and saw things that weren't being done that should be done. And I feel that a charter form of government gives legislative authority back to the council, which sometimes can be taken away just with, with things that have already been done and have the deal's been sealed or whatever, and the council not have a lot of say in it. So I think it's important that the council have their legislative authority, and we all stay in our lanes and we do the job as a team, not fighting against each other. And charter form of government, like I said, this is your constitution. This is what you live by. And this directs, I just wish I could think of some things. Like I said, there's been so many things happen.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah,
Comments?
I have a brief, about what's saying emotions.
I think what I want to see for our city is one, consistency. So between terms, and two, like how the city runs so well that I don't got to think about it. You know, I can focus on my business, my home, my community, and know the city is like progressing with a plan over time. I went to a Lebanon city council meeting and like no one was there. And look at Lebanon, it's such like a nice place to be. It's like, I want to live in a city where I know that's taken care of. You know, I don't got to worry about it. Things like that. That's my big push for it.
do you have a sense of what our city council thinks of making a change like this? If it's something they support or totally ignorant about, or where anybody stands? And Matt put here last to him, but
Yeah, I talked to a few of them that support it. I'm not sure the other one's opinions on it. I did present it to council, and I told them like she was saying, like it does give a lot of local control back, which is what a lot of people in the administration seem to want. So I think it is in line with that.
Well, here, just in Article 1 of this, it's names, boundaries, and powers. In the powers, the municipality shall have all powers possible for a municipal corporation to have under the Constitution and the laws of the state of Ohio, together with all implied powers necessary to carry into execution all the powers granted as fully and completely as though they are specifically enumerated in this charter. Okay? And that means somebody comes in and says, like I said, with the fiscal director, that's just an example. The fiscal director used to be an elected position in South Lebanon, but that changed somehow, somewhere at a point before I was involved. The powers of the municipality under this charter shall be, I got to get it closer. Construed liberally in favor of the municipality, and the specific mention of particular powers in the charter shall not be construed as limiting in any way the general powers granted in this charter. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about freedom.
and if there's a question that comes up and you've not addressed in here, but South Lebanon wants to do, then you fall back on
You either fall back on, or
when you change your charter.
or you bring it before council and you create an ordinance.
Yeah, this charter
Or a
is very
resolution.
bare bones. Like all it does is basically set up like there's a mayor, there's a city council,
Yeah.
what their roles are. All those like minutia things go into like the city ordinance.
Right.
So totally
because you want to
different than
keep this as clean and simple. like the U.S. Constitution,
Yeah.
you know, and this is probably thicker than the U.S. Constitution, but that's the beauty of it. And when you do now, like if somebody wants to change something in the charter, like I said before, then they have to do all the things that you need to do to get it on the ballot. But as far as anything else goes, you know, I'm trying to think of just an example. In some of our newer neighborhoods, there weren't marked fire lanes. There were, you know, fire hydrants, but no marked fire lanes. So people were parking on both sides of the streets, and that's not good. So, you know, we're letting the fire chiefs handle that. But if we need to get involved, there would be an ordinance created that there would be no parking on the side with a fire hydrant that is a fire lane. And it's for safety. It's not because we want to be. And there has been some pushback on that. But, you know, it's for the safety of all of our citizens because minutes count in an emergency. And that's just one of the examples.
So we are at 8 o'clock. I'm going to wrap things up. Welcome to stick around and discuss things further, but just be respectful of your time. I'll make sure
I'm happy to be
back.
here.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So I thank you guys too for coming out. Hopefully we can chat some more. I did record this. Hopefully the video is recorded the whole time, but I'll put it out for people who didn't get to listen to it.